What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So we have another movie review we are doing to kick off this week. It's a Monday. I hope everyone is doing well and having a good day thus far and a good start to your week. But again, we have another movie review we're going to do today, and as you can see, what movie we are taking a look at, which is Last Night in Soho. Now, I know this one from what I've read and what I can see, and I want to just put a stipulation out there, and I think I've said this since day one of this channel. I don't listen to critics. I don't listen to other people's reviews. Now, that doesn't mean I don't read them. It doesn't mean I don't listen to them, but I don't take them into account as it relates to me watching a film or not watching a film, and I don't allow it to sway me one way or another as I'm watching it. So I think I've made that clear since day one, again, of this channel, but I want to preface this that for this particular review, because I've seen a huge divide on this film where people feel that it's great for the first half and the last half is horrible. It also has been mentioned that this feels that, because this was filmed and done early on in 2020, so you can imagine, if you recall, what was happening in 2020 for the entire year, and many people felt that what was going on in 2020 had an impact on this film as far as how it was filmed, the way it was filmed, how it was, cut and put together. I don't necessarily see that. Now, again, this did come out in, at least listed in 2021, but would have been produced again through early 2020, and whether or not it had any suffering from those events, I don't see it. But that's what many people feel is what happened. Again, many people felt the first half of the film was great. The second half was absolutely atrocious. It was horrible. I mean, I can go on and on, but I'm not going to. Again, I just wanted to put that stipulation out there. I don't do that. I like watching films and having my own opinion on them. TV series, same thing. And you've heard me say this time and time again. I watch these films and TV series in a silo. I don't watch them in comparing it to another franchise or another film of that sort. Now, with that said, I want to say that this film, Last Night in Soho, I felt, not that I had seen the film before, but I loved the style. I loved how the look, the feel, the soundtrack, everything about this film. It does do a jump, and I say a jump meaning we have present time, and there are aspects where it jumps back into London in the 1960s. So again, I love everything about this. I love time period piece films, and the fact that they folded a bit of time period piece of 60s London into this, I absolutely love that. The cast I am a fan of as well. Now, the cast is primarily Thomasin McKenzie, Anya Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith, and Diana Rigg. Now, side note, Diana Rigg did pass away in 2020. She is no longer with us, so this might have been one of the last films that she worked on. But those are the four primary characters, actors and actresses for the film, as you can see just from the picture here. The other thing I want to preface is, if you've seen the film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, now that's not a horror film. The only reason I am bringing that film, that's more of a fantasy, mystery, adventure film. The only reason I'm bringing that film up is because this Last Night in Soho kind of felt that type of style, right? Where you're jumping from one current present time to a past time or another time frame. It just had that look, feel, the coloring, the film style, everything about it had that reminder of that film. So again, if you haven't seen The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, again, it's not a horror film, but that's a film I would highly recommend. It was the last film that Heath Ledger was working on. He actually, when he passed away, did not have a chance to complete the filming of that. So what they had to do is they had to bring in, they had to change the story, but they brought in the likes of like Colin Farrell, Johnny Depp, and a couple other actors to play the role of that same character. But again, they did it in a nice way, a good way to still honor Heath Ledger, but again, move on the character. And also Jude Law played the character as well. So those three come in and replace Heath Ledger, but they adjusted the story. So back to this film, Last Night in Soho. So we're going to jump into the review. I want to just set the expectation, as we always do. We are going to talk spoilers. So if you have not seen this film, you want to see this film, I would suggest, pause, go watch the film, come back, drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you thought of the film. Let us know if you agreed with our score and our summary and our take on it. Also, if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. So, spoilers from this point forward. Now, this is deemed as a British psychological horror film. I think it's more psychological horror. The fact that it's being labeled as British is because it is happening in London, current time, and 60s London. So that is the setting of the film. So I think that's why they're specifying British psychological horror. Now, we have been covering off on a lot of psychological horror films lately. I do think this is a subgenre that I don't want to say it's overlooked, but I think there's a lot of great films within this subgenre that I think need to be highlighted a bit more. And again, we did cover off one in our last upload, with a girl with the needle. Highly recommend that one. We gave it a 4.5, so make sure you check out that video and go check out that film. So, Last Night in Soho. I am going to keep the summary high level. I don't want to spoil this too much, but we are going to get into some of the details at this point forward. So this starts off with the main character, Ellie, or Eloise. She goes by Ellie Turner. She lives outside of London, outside the big city, more on the countryside. She is an aspiring fashion designer wanting to design clothes. She gets a scholarship to one of the schools in London, so she ends up moving. Now, her mother was also a fashion designer, but unfortunately, she took her own life off screen. That's just part of the story. But so she is now living with her grandmother. Has been living with her grandmother, who has raised her. So grandmother is very supportive, but does have a bit of concern her going to London. Ellie does have, I don't want to call it, she has these situations where she sees her mother. There's no rhyme or reason as to why her mother does appear, but occasionally she does see a ghost of her mother or the image of her mother in mirrors, and her grandmother is aware of this. So her grandmother is obviously concerned of this. I don't want to call it a condition, but that's what we're going to call it for lack of a better term. So she's concerned that she's going to have this condition while she gets there, and it's going to impact her. So she gets to London, obviously in the big city. She's been there before, but this is the first time on her own as a young adult. Meets her roommate, meets the others that are starting this fashion design school with her. Obviously, she's kind of the odd one out, and you can see right away the others, especially her roommate, are starting that bullying aspect, okay? As far as how she dresses, where she comes from, her lack of city knowledge, I guess I'll put it. So they are already undermining her and bullying her. And if you know me on a personal level, that's an area that I just absolutely despise. Now, I know this is a movie, but when it comes to that topic, I absolutely despise people who do that. I don't think there's any place for that whatsoever. So when I see this in films, it does hit home a little bit. So as the movie goes on, she meets another student. His name is John. Now, these two become very close. John, is very open as far as, trying to get to know Ellie a bit better. Now, as the film goes on, she realizes, I can't live here in this dorm. I need to get my own place, and she does so. So as she moves and looks for another place, she comes across an elderly woman named Mrs. Collins. Mrs. Collins has a room upstairs. It looks like it's about 3 floors, so I wouldn't say it's the attic, but the top floor is like a little studio apartment, or studio flat, as some people would call it. And some things that you need to listen for when you watch the movie. Miss Collins describes the room in a very particular way on certain things, that smells during certain times of the season, and the fact that they live next to a bistro, that there's a heavy smell of garlic. Now, I think when I was first watching the film, I wasn't clear as to why she was giving this information to Ellie, but in the second half of the film, you're going to understand why this information was given, and it's to, I think, play off or cover up some of the things that happen. I'm not going to mention what those are because, again, I don't want to spoil that aspect. So As the film goes on, it becomes we find more out about Ellie. She loves the like 50s, 60s music. That's all she listens to. And the reason why she loves this music is because that's what her grandmother always played. That's what she grew up listening to. So obviously, it's something she loves. Her clothing style, from a design perspective, is very 60s driven, and her the clothes that she wears, how she wants to present herself, same way. So she starts to evolve almost into another person. She dyes her hair, changed her clothing, as far as her style and fashion. And when she is upstairs in this room and plays a record of this music, she is then almost transported into another time frame. This is where we get present time, 1960s London, and we see then now another character who is the character name is Sandy, who is played by Anya Taylor-Joy. Now, Anya Taylor-Joy is supposed to, in a way, be Ellie as well, but they're still two different people. So Ellie is seeing herself as Sandy again, still a different character, still a different person, and she sees Sandy become, I think, in a ways what she wants to be, up until there's a turning point where Matt Smith's character comes into play and turns Sandy's life upside down, and we come to find out Matt Smith is a pimp and starts putting Sandy out for work. Now this obviously has a detriment onto Sandy, and as Ellie has these moments where she's like transporting from present time to the past, she's obviously trying to stop this, but knowing that this isn't something she's imagining. This is something that was actually had already occurred, and she's living in the same room that used to belong to Sandy. So that's where we get into the second half of the film, where it turns, in my opinion, from a psychological horror film into a bit of a traditional horror film, where you start to see the supernatural. You start to see some of the kills happening, and we find out who Miss Collins really is. Now, I'm not going to say who she is and what role she plays in this, because again, I don't want to spoil that. But the second half of the film is where we see Ellie trying to change what's happening in the past, but now the past is bleeding into the present time and impacting Ellie as far as the supernatural aspects of what transpired in the 1960s. Now, again, I know that might sound a bit confusing because we have two different timelines going, but keep in mind, Ellie is transporting in a way back into the 1960s, but what's happening there truly has happened, and Ellie is now trying to figure it out and trying to get justice, trying to help Sandy, trying to get the police in current time involved, all these aspects, but no one's believing her because they all think she is crazy, because again, she is known for having these visions of her mother that's already been passed. So again, people aren't necessarily taking her seriously up until the point everything comes to a head, and we find out again what truly happened to Sandy, where Sandy is, who was all involved, and then we wrap up the film with Ellie ultimately living out her aspirations as a fashion designer, making her mother proud, making her grandmother proud. But how she gets there and what happens to her along the way in that second half of the film, I don't want to spoil that. But again, that's where we get heavy into the supernatural aspects of the film for both Ellie and Sandy, and how those supernatural aspects impact them both in past and current time. So now I'm going to wrap this up now with my rating of the film. As I mentioned, I feel that this film didn't get enough credit for what it was attempting and trying to achieve in the story it was telling, especially going from current time to a previous time. So I'm giving, and again, this is just my rating, because again, I'm a fan of the cast, I'm a fan of the subgenre, as well as the time period that was represented. So I'm giving this one a solid 4.5. I could easily go back and watch this film again, time and time again, probably find different aspects, tie some things together a bit more. But I feel the cinematography, I feel the soundtrack. Again, I love the acting of going back from current time to 1960s London. I enjoy all that. So again, 4.5 for me. I will preface though, this isn't going to be a film for everybody. If you don't like any of those aspects, then again, this will be a film for you to avoid. But if you're willing to give new films a try, especially psychological horror films, I would recommend this one. And as I continue to say, watch it in a silo. Watch it for the story it's looking to tell and achieve. And I think you will enjoy the film to a degree. And it might be one of those films that many people feel that either you're going to love it or you're going to hate it. There's not going to be any middle ground for this film. I fall on the side then of loving the film for 4.5 for me. So that's going to wrap up my quick review for Last Night in Soho. Again, I don't want to give too much details on the second half because I feel that would spoil the experience of you watching the film. So that's all the summary I'm going to give for this one. Again, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know if you've seen the film. Do you agree? Did you enjoy the film? Did you rate it as high, or do you rate it a little bit lower? Or did you not like the film at all? Also, let us know in the comment section if you haven't seen it and hey, you have an interest in trying out something new and giving it a chance. And also, if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you have already done so, to all new and existing subscribers, thank you so much for the support. It is greatly appreciated. And we will see you at the next one. Peace.